Dear Pisces, if lately you have felt that something inside you is shifting, even if you cannot name it clearly, you are not imagining it. Some changes do not arrive with noise. There is no dramatic event, no announcement that your life is about to turn a page. They arrive quietly, like a morning when you wake up and realize your breathing feels slightly different, like an evening when you sit in stillness and notice that what once weighed heavily on your heart no longer squeezes it the same way. That is the moment when the wheel of fate begins to move off its old track, even though, on the surface, everything still looks exactly the same. Pisces lives through feeling. You are always the first to know when something is off, and also the first to sense when energy begins to shift direction. Lately, you may notice your emotions no longer scatter the way they used to. You think more slowly, more deeply. Impulsive reactions are gradually replaced by quiet observation. You no longer feel the need to argue just to prove you are right. Instead, you begin asking yourself, what truly matters? This is not you becoming weaker. This is you growing. In your own way, what once felt like being trapped in a room without windows now begins to show tiny cracks of light, not big enough to call them opportunities, but enough to keep you from despair. A new thought appears. An old belief loosens its grip. A familiar fear no longer controls you the way it once did. These signs are not here to excite you. They are here to reassure you that the path you are walking is no longer the old one. What is remarkable is that this shift does not force you to change your outer life right away. You may still be in the same place, doing the same work, living in the same circumstances, but inside, the way you see everything has changed. You begin to understand that not every closed door is a loss. Not every delay is a failure. Some pauses exist, so you can finally be awake enough to listen to yourself after years of holding your breath just to survive. Pisces has carried a sense of lack for a long time, not only financially, but emotionally. The feeling of not being recognized, not being understood, not being fairly valued for everything you have given. Yet, when fate begins to turn, the first thing that heals is not your wallet, but the way you see your own worth. You stop asking, why? You always have to be the one who loses. You stop asking others for permission to live as yourself. And in that moment, quiet as it may be, there is a power strong enough to change the entire direction ahead. You may not yet be able to name what is coming. You may still feel anxious, still unsure. But trust this, if nothing were being rearranged, you would not feel lighter when you think about the future. You would not have stopped blaming yourself for the past. You would not have begun dreaming dreams that feel real, grounded, and possible. These are signals that never lie to Pisces. And when they appear, they rarely come alone. They bring a new understanding of what you have lived through and why those difficult years were necessary. As if all the pieces are slowly revealing themselves, patiently but surely, so you can finally see that you were never forgotten. Everything simply needed the right timing, so you would be strong enough to receive it. And as that understanding spreads through your chest, you realize you are no longer standing still. Your steps may still be gentle, still slow, but they are now pointed toward an entirely different place. Pisces, there is a truth not everyone is gentle enough to tell you. The season of lack you have lived through was never the end of your story. It was not a sentence. It was not proof that you failed or that you chose the wrong path. It was a very long test, quiet, and at times, deeply lonely. A test designed to see whether you could stay patient with yourself when there was nothing left to lean on, the days of tight finances, the moments of counting every small expense, the nights you lay awake, your mind heavy with worry. None of this appeared to break you. It came to slowly peel away. The illusions you once carried. You believed that if you tried hard enough, everything would work out. You believed that giving more would eventually bring reward. But reality asked you to stop and face a more important question. Were you giving too much while forgetting to keep something for yourself? Pisces knows how to endure. You can smile, even when you are exhausted inside. You can keep moving forward with a heart full of wounds. Yet this season of scarcity made it impossible to keep enduring the old way. You began to see that uncontrolled sacrifice is no longer noble, that kindness without boundaries turns into a burden, and that your worth is not measured by how much you can endure, but by whether you are brave enough to stop at the right moment. There were days when you felt trapped in a loop without an exit, working more, but never enough, thinking constantly, yet without clarity, wanting change, but afraid to lose the little you still had. And in those days, a different kind of strength quietly formed. Not the strength of action, but the strength of awareness. You started to see clearly which choices were draining you. You began to recognize what was truly your responsibility and what burdens you had unknowingly carried for others. This period also taught you something essential about money. Money is not just a number, it is energy, a reflection of your relationship with yourself. When you undervalue yourself, money moves quickly through your life. When you live in fear and contraction, money becomes fragile. And when you begin to respect your own effort, even silently, that relationship starts to shift. Slowly, but clearly, you did not fail because you were poor. You were being trained to understand that true abundance does not come from having more than others, but from no longer betraying yourself just to survive. The pressures you endured taught you how to stand steady when nothing felt certain. The disappointments taught you not to place all your hope in a single support, and that steadiness will become the foundation for a much larger leap, one you cannot yet fully see. Perhaps right now, you still cannot name the good that lies ahead. But if you look back, you will see you are no longer the person you once were. You understand yourself more deeply. You know your limits. You know what drains you and what brings you back to life. And when someone truly understands their own worth, they are no longer easily pushed into a directionless life. When this understanding settles into your heart, it creates a very quiet kind of peace. Not because every problem has disappeared, but because you are no longer afraid of them. And within that quiet space, new choices begin to appear, unforced, unrushed, clear enough for you to realize that the road ahead will no longer be shaped by fear, but by the awareness you paid a very high price to gain. And from that awareness, something very different begins to happen. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just one morning, you wake up and realize you no longer want to repeat the old way of living. Not because you are tired of life, but because you can now see very clearly the price you would keep paying if you stayed the same. Some moments are small, almost invisible, yet they carry the weight of an entire lifetime. The moment you understand that if you do not choose a new direction for yourself, life will keep choosing for you, and it will not be gentle. This decision does not resemble the impulsive choices Pisces once made. It does not come from emotional highs or fragile hope. It arrives after many silent nights of thinking, after disappointment layered on disappointment, after the exhaustion of constantly having to prove your worth to the world. You are no longer choosing to please anyone else. For the first time, you are choosing to protect yourself. Maybe it is the moment you stop a job that no longer sustains your spirit or your future. Maybe it is when you stop waiting for recognition from a relationship that has long been out of balance. Or maybe It is simply the moment. You stop telling yourself that you are not good enough, not lucky enough, not worthy enough. However, it takes shape. This decision shares one quiet truth. It is calm. It does not need applause. It does not need immediate understanding. But inside, you know you have crossed an important line. Pisces has always lived in the emotional world, where compassion and sacrifice often guide decisions. But this time, your choice carries the presence of someone who has traveled far enough to understand that loving yourself is not selfish. Being grown does not mean becoming hard or cold. It means being willing to take responsibility for your own happiness and stability, even when that requires letting go of what once felt familiar. Right after this decision, you may not see money change immediately. There is no miracle, no sudden breakthrough. But one thing shifts very clearly: your energy. You are no longer scattered. You no longer stand at countless crossroads, out of fear of disappointing others. You begin setting boundaries, not to push people away, but to preserve the strength needed for what truly matters. And when your energy stops leaking, life starts responding in a different way. Opportunities you once let pass because you did not dare reach for them now return in new forms. Ideas you once dismissed, believing you were not capable, suddenly feel possible. You begin seeing life through a practical lens, without losing your natural sense of wonder. This balance is rare, and it only appears when someone has been hurt deeply enough to no longer want to keep hurting themselves. This turning point decision also asks you to accept that not everyone will walk with you into the next stretch of the road. Some connections exist only to teach a lesson, not to last forever. When you stop trying to hold on to everything, you feel lighter. And in that lightness, you gain the space to see what is truly opening ahead of you. Still unclear, but undeniably real. Gradually, you realize you no longer stand before life with the posture of begging or waiting. You stand as someone ready to work with fate, not fighting it, not surrendering to it. You know what you can do. You know what you still need to learn. And you understand that every lasting change begins with how you treat yourself each day. As this clarity spreads through your thoughts and your actions, it creates room for movements that are concrete, human, and real. Movements that no longer live only in awareness, but begin touching the very areas of life that once worried you the most. And as those very real movements begin to touch your everyday life, the state, Pisces slowly realizes something important. What matters most is not when money shows up, but that you are no longer looking at money through the same old eyes. Before, money felt like worry, pressure, something you were always chasing, always a step behind, always just a little short. But then, very slowly, very naturally, that way of thinking begins to crack, like thin ice, meeting the first sunlight of early spring. You start treating yourself differently, not with empty affirmations, but with real, grounded choices. You stop doing work that drains you, just to prove that you are hardworking. You stop accepting low value for your effort, simply because you are afraid of losing an opportunity. You stop seeing lack as something you are supposed to endure. In the quiet, you begin asking yourself a question you once avoided. If I do not believe I am worthy, who will believe it for me? That question opens a change at the root. As Pisces begins to see their own value more clearly, the way you make decisions changes too. You become more careful with how you give your time and energy. You start choosing environments where you are respected, even if they do not bring immediate results. You learn to say no without over-explaining. And each time you do, another old layer of fear falls away. Money is highly sensitive to mindset. It does not only flow toward places with opportunity, it is also drawn to people who have a healthy relationship with themselves. When you stop treating money as the only measure of your worth, something unexpected happens. You become more attractive to stable, lasting forms of abundance, because now your choices are no longer driven by fear of not having enough, but by inner clarity. And that clarity leads you to choose better, steadier, longer-term paths. You may notice that you manage what you already have more wisely. You no longer spend to fill emotional emptiness. You no longer delay learning or growth because you think you are not ready yet. You invest not only with money, but with full presence. And little by little, your life begins to feel more organized, more balanced, easier to breathe in. This stability does not come from one big lucky break. It comes from many small adjustments you have made consistently. Pisces once lived for a long time in a dreamlike state without solid ground. Now, you still keep that softness, but beside it stands a stronger spine. You no longer chase promises that sound too perfect. You no longer place everything on a vague possibility. You learn how to build a foundation, one brick at a time, slow but steady. And this rhythm is what allows money to stay longer in your life instead of just passing through and disappearing. The most beautiful part of this change is that you do not lose who you are. You remain a deeply compassionate Pisces. You still feel moved by the subtle beauty of life, but now you no longer use sacrifice as a measure of love. You understand that abundance does not make you cold. It gives you the ability to help others from a stronger place without exhaustion, without resentment. And when you look back on the road you have traveled, you can see clearly that money did not arrive to save you. It arrived to walk beside a version of you that is more mature, more aware, and kinder to yourself. In that grounded feeling, you begin to imagine a future that no longer feels unstable. A future where your choices are not led by scarcity, but by the desire to build a life that is deep, safe, and sustainable. A life where you can stand there for a long time in calm and continue opening your heart to the good things that are slowly coming into view. And then, within this very new sense of stability, doors begin to open in ways Pisces might have missed before. Not because they did not exist, but because at that time, you were not yet clear enough to tell which doors were real and which were only temporary escapes. This time is different. Nothing arrives loudly. No grand announcements. No oversized promises. What comes feels grounded, practical, real, as if life is placing a foundation in your hands instead of offering another fragile dream. Maybe it shows up as a new job, not glamorous, but clear. A place where your effort is recognized more fairly than before. Maybe it appears as a secondary source of income, built from skills you once underestimated, things you thought were just hobbies, just something you did for enjoyment. Or maybe it is support that arrives at the right moment, not to rescue you from hardship, but to help you walk through it. With your head held high, these opportunities do not overwhelm you. They bring relief, because for the first time in a long while, you no longer feel like you have to strain just to survive. What stands out most is that Pisces no longer chases every invitation. You listen more closely to what you feel inside. You can tell the difference between what offers long-term stability and what is only briefly attractive. You do not need to be pushed. You do not need to prove that you are moving fast. You only need to know that you are moving in the right direction. And that feeling quiet as it is, brings a sense of safety you once thought was a luxury. These changes also help you understand that abundance does not have to begin with a large number. It begins when you stop living in a constant state of emotional lack. When you no longer drain your energy through fear, comparison, or self-blame, you create space to focus on what truly creates value. You work with more presence. You learn with a more open mind. And little by little, your life becomes more organized, more structured, like a room that has finally been cleared. After years of holding things you no longer needed, Pisces begins to feel that you are standing in the right place. Not because everything is perfect, but because you no longer feel lost. You know what you are building. You understand why you chose this path. And even without dramatic results yet, you feel steady with each step you take. This kind of steadiness cannot be borrowed from anyone else. It can only be created from within. There are moments when you look back and realize that if these opportunities had arrived earlier, you might not have been able to hold them. You did not yet have the patience, the discipline, the clarity to avoid sabotaging what was beginning to improve. The difficult season taught you how to value stability even when it arrives slowly. And that appreciation is what allows good things to stay longer in your life. The most beautiful part is that you do not have to change who you are to fit this new sense of abundance. You do not need to become hard or overly practical. You simply become a Pisces who has learned how to place yourself in the right position within your own life. When you are standing in the right place, you do not have to reach too far to grasp opportunity. It comes to you naturally, within reach, within strength, enough to let you keep moving forward without fear of losing your balance. And within this very real stability, you begin to see a wider picture, not just how much you can earn, but how you want to live. In the years ahead, when the foundation has been laid, even if it is not thick, even if it is not perfect, it is still strong enough for you to think further, think longer, and imagine a life that is not only sufficient, but peaceful enough for you to keep growing, not in anxiety, but in a quiet trust in yourself and in the path you are choosing to walk. And as that stability begins to show up more consistently in your life, Pisces starts to realize that abundance is no longer a distant or vague idea. It becomes a state that needs care, attention, and conscious presence. Before, you believed that having more money would automatically fix everything. But now, with the first foundations finally in place, you understand something deeper. Having is only the beginning. What truly matters is how you live with what you have. Maturity in this season does not come from becoming hardened or emotionally closed off. It comes from knowing when to pause, knowing what to hold on to, knowing how to say no to what no longer fits, even when it once felt safe. You no longer allow temporary emotions to drive every decision. You allow yourself to feel, but you do not let feelings override clarity. This balance is subtle, rare, and not everyone reaches it. Pisces begins to look beyond short-term pleasure. You think about tomorrow, about the years ahead, about the life you want to sustain, not just achieve. You realize that stability does not drain life of its color. It gives those colors a strong surface to last longer. When survival is no longer your main concern, you gain more space to truly live, to create, to love fully. There is a noticeable shift in how you use your energy. You stop spending emotions recklessly. You stop rushing into relationships or projects. Out of fear of missing out, you begin choosing more carefully. Not because opportunities are fewer, but because you understand the value of time and focus. Every choice now carries a quiet question. Does this help me build a little more safety for the future? Abundance also teaches you a deeper level of self-responsibility. No more blaming circumstances. No more waiting for someone to come rescue you. You understand that what you are able to hold today is the result of many things you have learned, many things you have released, and a great deal of patience. Because of that, you treat stability as a meaningful achievement, not something to take for granted. Pisces also begins to feel the true meaning of building a foundation. No rushing, no skipping steps. You allow things to grow at their natural pace. You know that a sustainable life is not built through giant leaps, but through steady steps, solid steps. Steps you can repeat every day without exhausting yourself. This is a quiet form of wealth. Not loud, not showy, but very difficult to take away. And the most beautiful part is that through this growth, you do not lose your softness. You remain a Pisces who is moved by small moments, who can feel deeply for the pain of others, who can find meaning in very ordinary scenes of life. But now, you no longer let kindness empty you out. You learn to give from a place of fullness, not from lack. And that shift makes what you offer healthier and far more sustainable. Looking back, you can see clearly that lasting abundance did not arrive to change who you are. It arrived to help you live more truthfully as yourself. It does not take away your sensitivity. It gives you a safe place where sensitivity is no longer a burden. And within that safety, you begin to feel a very new kind of trust, a quiet one that life does not need to be a constant race. Some seasons exist so you can slow down, strengthen your roots, and stand more firmly in your own life. As that trust settles in, it opens a different kind of readiness, as if you are preparing to receive something deeper, more meaningful, not only for yourself, but for the way you show up in the world around you. And it is within this quiet sense of readiness that Pisces touches a final message. Not loud, not dramatic, but heavy enough to change how you move forward. You realize that the hardest part was never surviving hardship. The hardest part is allowing good things to stay. Once they begin to appear, many people become so familiar with lack that when life softens, they instinctively search for reasons to doubt, to question whether they deserve it. But you are different now. You have traveled far enough to no longer need to punish yourself. In the early days, as things begin to flow more smoothly, you may still feel your chest tighten slightly. A part of you waits for disruption, as if this calm can only be temporary. That is a very human reflex, especially for Pisces, who have lived so long in a state of quiet defense. But as days pass, you notice something important. No wave crashes in. Everything remains. What you have built is still standing. And in that realization, you learn how to exhale deeply for the first time in a very long while. Allowing a new destiny to unfold is not giving up. It is not surrender. It is a deeply intentional act from someone awake enough to stop resisting what is arriving through their own growth. You stop asking why this is happening to you. You stop comparing your life to other stories. You understand that everyone moves at a different rhythm, and your rhythm, even if slower in some chapters, is what allows you to stand firmly when it truly matters. Pisces begins to open their heart in a different way, not to carry more of other people's pain, but to receive support, recognition, and a sense of fullness you once believed was out of reach. You allow yourself to feel joy without guilt. You allow yourself to feel peace without explanation. You allow practical dreams to exist alongside everyday responsibilities. And that permission, gentle as it is, holds the power to soften even the oldest wounds. You also begin to trust yourself without needing proof, without needing to explain. Everything you have survived, without needing to convince anyone that you are worthy. This trust is quiet. It does not perform. It shows up in the way you walk more slowly, speak less, choose more carefully. It lives in how you care for your life, starting with the smallest details. And it is this quiet consistency that gives your new destiny a place to anchor. When you look ahead now, you no longer feel rushed by time. You know you are in the right place, in the right season. You understand that not every door needs to open at once. Some things arrive only when you continue living what you have already learned, and you are no longer impatient because you can feel the current supporting you rather than pushing you forward, as it once did. The message for Pisces right now is simple. Trust the peace you have. Value what is becoming stable. Keep moving at your own pace. Not faster, not slower than anyone else. Just honest with yourself. Your destiny did not shift because of random luck. It shifted because you were brave enough to change from within, patient enough to walk through difficult seasons, and mature enough to stop rejecting the good when it finally arrived. And as you continue forward with that steady trust, life does not need to promise you anything more, because your presence right here, right now, is already the clearest proof that you are living inside a new current, one that is calmer, deeper, and far more lasting